So, man, I'm
Burning everything at least.
I'm going to burn everything. I'm going to burn my computer, all the cords, and all the equipment.
Is that like an Atari? It looks like an Atari from. It looks like a Commodore 64 from like 1986 to me right now.
That's well. Here's the problem.
The VIC 20, Commodore VIC 20. That was the one.
Yeah, if
the double drive with the floppy disk that you put in there, you set it on fire.
That's what I had. I only played games with that.
Yeah,
I never actually used it for a computer.
Exactly.
No, I mean, what could you use it for to type?
You couldn't even remember the game Zork. You ever play Zork?
Zork.
The word game. It was like the first adventure game that was just an all word game. It wasn't any graphics at all. Zork. There was Zork 1 and Zork 2 back in the 80s.
There was a game that I played called Gorf, I think it was. It was actually pretty cool, and I was just addicted to it. But it was only on the VIC 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea what we're talking about.
Right.
I had an Atari.
Yeah, I had an Atari. I had a ColecoVision, Atari, Intellivision, and a Commodore 64.
So all I ever had was the Atari.
And then I grew up.
I think the video Pong before.
Yeah, I think I had a PlayStation at one point, like something like that.
I never had a PlayStation.
But my friend had an Intellivision. I remember that one. Oh my god,
that's the one with the dial. Remember, it had like they had like the little dial or something that you had to press it. Yeah, it was weird.
We played baseball and football on.
No, actually, no. I'm sorry. I never had it. That's the one thing I never had in television. I had Atari.
Yep.
I don't think I had ColecoVision, but I had the Commodore 64.
I don't think I had it. I think all I had was an Atari.
You ever had Questron? That was on the Commodore 64.
No.
It was like one of those adventure games.
Oh, we're not doing this.
Open this door and you die. Open this door, you get through. You know, that type of thing. Like dungeon, like the Dragon's Lair.
Is that like when you get married? Open this door, you get married. You're gonna wish you were dead.
Open this door, your life's over.
Yeah. Open this door. It's your buddy's car, and he just drives you away, and you live. Yeah, it's perfect. All right. So tell me something right now. Tell me if this is weird. Okay. I overheard a woman at work, and she said that she FaceTimes her daughter in college every single night. Is that weird?
Yeah, that's very intrusive, actually.
It's very weird, but it's very common now. I feel like there's, the helicopter mom and dad, and I think it's more common than it used to be, where I didn't talk to my parents for like almost, 6 months when I went to school, but it was just different back then.
Yeah, but it seemed really weird to me. That every single night she talks to her daughter.
So I was in an overnight summer camp when I was a kid. When I was 12, 13, I went to this overnight camp, and it was like it was either a 2-week option or 1 month option. I took the 1 month option.
No, your mom took the 1 month option.
Yeah, I did. But the funny thing is, like, I literally did not think, it didn't even cross my mind that I'm like, I miss my mother and I want to talk to her. At no point during that time there.
No.
Did I think that at all?
No, it's funny because
in fact I forgot she even existed.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when we were in college,
absolutely.
I mean, when we were in college, we were 18. I mean, when we were at Eastern, you could drink, right? So, I mean, not that we weren't drinking in high school, but I mean, now it was just you could do whatever you wanted. You had no parental supervision whatsoever. No one, I can tell you right now, no one gave a shit what we did.
Yeah,
nobody cared at all.
No.
I mean, it's the same thing for you, right, Steve?
I was the youngest of 5, and I was much younger than my sisters. My parents didn't even take me to college. I drove by myself. I got busted with a keg in my dorm the second day I was there. But I didn't even go home for the holidays, like Thanksgiving. I stayed at school, but it was just different. I think me being the youngest and the only boy, they didn't really care.
Were you in a fraternity?
No.
Were you ever in a fraternity?
I can hardly hear Ted right now.
Were you in a fraternity?
No.
Okay.
No. I was a GDI, yeah.
Okay.
GDI, what does that mean?
What's GDI?
A goddamn independent.
Goddamn independent.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Got it,
I totally forgot about that.
Were you in a fraternity?
No.
Okay.
No. So
you just acted like you were.
Yeah. No. My freshman year, everybody pledged because it was just like free drinking, right?
Yeah.
You just go to all these places and drink, and then we all got invites, and it was I didn't go to college with anybody I knew, not a single person. So we're on the same floor. We got like 20 guys. We're all sitting together. And I go, hey, man, I got this thing, for this fraternity. And one guy's like, yeah, I got the same thing. And I'm like, are we doing this? And we all just kind of looked at each other. And one guy goes, nah, it's stupid. And then we all just threw it away. No, and I think out of like 20 guys on our floor, like 2 guys did it. Okay. That was it. Mm-hmm. And that's how I became not in a fraternity. It was that simple.
Do you still talk to some of those guys to this day from the guys you in college? Or are they all dead to you right now? Are they all persona non grata?
You know what? I kind of fell out with them. Yeah, we kind of went and did our own separate things and everything.
The good times ran its course, and then it was time to move on to greener pastures. Huh?
Yeah. I mean,
it was a weird thing. Like I had a roommate. I had 3 roommates in a dorm, and he wasn't allowed to talk to us after he joined the fraternity. It was so weird, even in our room. Like it was just the most bizarre thing that like caused a separation, and we just, I just was so turned off from that.
It's like the caste.
Same thing. I pledged freshman year just for fun. But
it's like the caste system or something. Where in India, where you just can't, like there's rankings of like who you can talk to.
He wasn't. Wait, he wasn't allowed to talk to you.
Right. Like, he wasn't talking to anybody.
What kind of rule is that? Oh, I'm sorry. Is your girlfriend a brown? Is she a brown hair? Yeah, dumper. We do redheads and blondes in this fraternity. That's it.
I'm assuming you guys didn't do 21 shots for your 21st birthday. That's why we're all still here today.
I did
you guys
that.
didn't do any stupid shit like that.
I did that.
You were that guy?
I did that, man. I was a train wreck. I got out of the car in the middle of an intersection and tried to start a fight with somebody who was turning left.
Nice.
Yeah, it was absolute.
Well, because they didn't have a turn signal on, so it makes sense.
Absolute train wreck, man. It was absolutely the worst.
Oh, you were that guy. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. It was. I lost my shit. I was really bad with this. Okay, and then one more thing before we start. You guys heard that Biden went to the Ukraine, right?
Yeah, it was a secret visit to the Ukraine. Didn't tell anybody. He just showed up. He just took a 3:30 a.m. flight on Air Force One and just popped up. Because obviously they're not going to announce that in advance. But apparently Russia knew in advance that he was going to be there. Did you know that?
Wait, did Putin say he knew in advance?
No, actually, I think the U.S. State Department actually notified Russia that Biden was going to the Ukraine. So Putin knew in advance that he was going there.
Well, that's insane.
So
Why would you?
What does that mean? Does that mean they're not going to bomb that day, or what does that mean?
Maybe it's just a professional courtesy. Just hey, U.S. president. I mean, obviously, if let's just say Putin would have done something crazy.
You mean crazier than invading the Ukraine for no good reason?
Yeah, but
whatsoever.
like on that day that Biden's in visiting, just for political theater.
What would we do? What would we do?
Yeah,
would we just start bombing? Russia?
Exactly.
No.
Well, obviously, it would just be chaos. So you wouldn't do anything. Yeah.
But you guys know he wasn't. The plan wasn't for him to go to Ukraine. You know that, right?
Because he was supposed to go to Poland.
So
right?
last night, I guess he woke up in the middle of the night and he said, I want to go to. This is what he thought. He thought he was going to Fort Wayne for an ice cream festival. Yeah. So he meant to say Fort Wayne. He actually said Ukraine, and bam! Next thing you know, he's in the Ukraine.
Rhyme, yeah.
Yeah. Because they actually, when they told Putin, they're like, "Hey, man, he's going to Fort Wayne for an ice cream festival," and Putin was like, "I don't really give shit. I don't give shit." And then next thing you know, he's in the Ukraine. So we all kind of, it's just a little gaffe that the president of the United States made. And don't worry, he'll be 2 years older when he runs again, so it's all good.
I'm curious.
So when Ted's running for president, if we send him to Ukraine right now, will Putin show some respect and not do anything when Ted's there?
Well, that's a good question. So.
Oh my God, we should. You know what? We should send Ted to the Ukraine and see what happens.
Actually, I'll have Putin on. I'll Putin on Zoom, so we don't have to worry about it. We'll just I'll do it. I'll real time him from there, and I'll just have him. I'll walk around with a little iPad with walking around Ukraine, showing Putin what's going on.
We send Teddy to the Ukraine with a T-shirt with a bullseye on it that says "fuck Putin," right? And then we send him there, and he just walks around with a camera, and every time he sees him, he'll just start flipping people off and doing all that kind of crazy stuff.
Well, apparently Russia's losing like 1,000 troops a day, allegedly. I don't know how that's possible, but like I said, I mean, so basically Russia themselves, because basically the running gag is like never invade Russia in the wintertime because that's always like the end of the war. Like when Napoleon did that back in the day, Hitler did that back in the day, that always would spell doom for them. So actually Putin is actually Putining himself by invading another country. He's like, he's been invading another country because the whole premise is this: we're going to be out of there in 3 months and it's going to be good. And of course 3 months turns into 33 months, and then the wintertime comes, then all the troops have to deal with the cold, which is another enemy. The cold.
Cold is my
winter,
enemy.
Yeah,
the cold is my enemy.
Yeah,
but Ukraine can handle the cold too, so it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, I'm saying if you're marching 1,000 miles to get to a different city, just like that's why logistically, when you have to go 1,000 miles to even get to your enemy, that's a huge barrier right there.
Ted,
right?
I'm almost 100% sure they're not walking. I'm almost positive. Steve, I don't know if you know anything special about it, but they probably have some sort of vehicles. I'm assuming they have vehicles.
Yeah, but are they paved roads that they're going on? I mean, let's assume it's
those
not
old
like
movies have a lot of walking going on. World War I, World War II. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you know what? There always is a lot of walking. Yeah. Then you put up your fist, and everybody stops.
Yeah.
And then they do something with their fingers. Yeah. I want to learn all those. You know what? That's the thing I want to learn. I want to learn all those hand signals so that just when I'm walking down the sidewalk, I can put that up and people are just like, oh, fuck, stop.
How long did it take the settlers to, like, say, march in their wagon caravans from, like, say, Missouri to, like, New Mexico or California? You know, it's like a 2-day trip. Yeah, exactly.
17
exactly.
Yeah. Months and months.
Dysentery, cholera.
Wait, that with their
Indians.
names? They did the most ridiculous names. Native Americans.
Long story short, there was a lot of deaths along the way due to disease.
Cocaine bears.
Yeah, Winnie the Pooh.
Could you
even coming out? I gotta see it. I gotta see that movie.
Winnie the Pooh and cocaine bears. Oh my God. Oh yeah, dude. I cannot wait for Cocaine Bear. Ray Liotta's last movie.
Yeah,
that's how Ray Liotta will be remembered, not for like Goodfellas and all the other stuff.
He died in his sleep in like the Dominican Republic, right?
That's after he saw. So this what happened. He saw a preview of his movie and then dead the next day. It's that bad. Oh, donk, and he was dead. So who knows what's going to happen.
You guys shocked? Super Bowl commercial was Cocaine Bear. I was shocked that was one of the commercials. So it's a legit movie.
How much is it like for a 30-second spot? The Super Bowl, $5 million for $5 million for a 30-second spot.
It was early in the first quarter, but still
probably more now. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, how many movies actually come out now? I mean, there's not many movies that come out. You might as well advertise, right? I mean, somebody's going on dates. Somebody's going somewhere. Yeah. They're going on dates. They're I don't know what people do anymore, but they're doing. Oh, excuse me, they're doing something. So who knows, man? You got to go out. You can either watch a superhero. I mean, all there is superhero movies.
Everything's like a remake
monster movies, slasher movies, and cocaine movies.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah,
or like the love story, or every movie is like very predictable. Like you can kind of predict the ending of it, right? I mean, we all know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I can watch at home when I know what's going to happen. I know exactly. Oh, boy meets girl, boy loses girl. Yeah, I can see.
I mean, you might as well watch Golf Channel. At least it's more unpredictable because you really don't know who's going to win sometimes, right? So, I mean,
it looks like it's just going to be John Rahm. That's all it's going to be is John Rahm.
John Rahm or Max Homa, exactly.
Oh, and I'm glad you brought that up because in a couple of weeks we are going to have our golf show, Teddy. Yeah.
Oh, are we going to the golf show? I actually got the flyer.
We are going to the golf show. Yeah.
It's this Friday, right?
This Friday we're going to the golf show, but we're going to have a PGA professional on, and he's going to be giving us tips and critiquing our swings, and obviously he's going to be making fun of you. Yeah. He's got to be.
Steve, I'm in a bad place mentally, swing-wise. The range has ruined my swing.
I listened last week, and I've been there because I'm left-handed. And Matt, you were there a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I started golfing right-handed.
I did that too.
I took my dad out.
I did that too.
I did a round of righty, and I actually hit it better, which actually pissed me off.
Yeah. Same here.
Same thing.
But only for a few minutes, and then it goes away, right? Because
I did a whole 9 holes. Nice. And actually played better right-handed, which actually pissed me off.
Yeah, and you know what you start thinking? You're thinking, I'm never going back to lefty, right? This is great. This is like you found the secret. You found the secret. You found the secret. Yeah, and then what happens is it's gone after about a day or two, and then
Yeah,
but let me ask
is for you.
But did you putt right-handed? See, I never putted right-handed. I always putted left-handed.
No, so I actually golf lefty and I putt righty because I used to play hockey right-handed.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I don't have the yips right-handed like I have the left-handed yips. So
gotcha.
Yeah, so.
Wait, if you hold a tennis racket, do you hold it with your right hand or your left hand?
Left. I'm predominantly lefty. Besides, I played hockey right-handed, and
gotcha.
That's just a different.
See, that's interesting because most Canadians are right-handed, but they play hockey left-handed. That's why most.
Steve's not Canadian. You know that.
I know that.
Oh, okay. So. Okay. I wasn't sure if you knew.
I'm in Miami.
Yeah. We'll have this conversation. We'll have this conversation later.
Yeah. Okay. Can we get this thing started? Because golf show's in 2 weeks, not this week.
Oh, I thought. Wait, it says
no.
February 20th.
Our golf show.
Our golf
Ted.
show.
Yeah.
But are we going to the golf show?
Yeah, Ted. No one gives a shit if we're going to the golf show.
Of course.
No one listening.
I mean, I don't even.
No one listening in Saudi Arabia, in Australia, in different parts of Africa, Brazil. Nobody gives a shit if we're going to the golf show.
They don't want to hear us wandering around with overpriced drinks, equipment that we're not going to buy. They don't want to hear about that.
You had overpriced drinks. I told you the story where one of my students.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, one of my students. I walked into a golf show like I don't know whatever it was before COVID. And I hear the guy calls out my name, and I'm just like, I look over, and there's a kid. And I'm like, hey. He goes, you were my 8th grade teacher. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. And I kind of remembered him. Yeah. And the next thing I know, I'm drinking all day for free.
Oh, that's all that matters.
I left her so drunk. It was awesome. All right, but you know what? man, maybe he's got no job and he still is doing this. That would be really great. It would be terrible because it's like 4 years later. But
Or you have to hide a flask in your waistband when you go in there, so you'd have to pay.
what?
$100.
No, I'm not hiding a
I'm
flask.
kidding.
Ted, I put a six-pack in my pants, and then it looks like I'm always happy to be there. Okay, let's get this thing started. Hey, everybody. My name is Matt, and this is the Real Three Idiots podcast. With me, as always, is the worst liar I have ever met, Teddy.
Happy Monday. And I've only lied about lying. It's the only thing I've lied about.
Oh, my God, that is terrible. And back because we are talking booze, or maybe the lack of booze, today, my brother-in-law, Steve. Steve, welcome back.
Glad to be back. It's funny. I've always only been here for the booze shows and when you need a third idiot. So I think I'm good to dumb the show down a little bit for you guys.
Please.
So
Thank you.
Oh,
Happy to be here.
that's nice. I mean, the show definitely needs to be dumbed down.
Thank you for thinning out the gene pool. Thank you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we're
Doing a
way
great
too
job.
smart. So Mark is on assignment. Okay, he got and this is kind of cool. He got a personal invite from Linda, the Bigfoot lady. So he is in Nebraska right now. And now this is a little strange. He hasn't called or texted in a couple of days, but I'm sure he's okay.
And his phone is untraceable. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's not shut off.
No, I'm sure he's fine.
I'm sure it's not in a landfill somewhere. It's good.
Okay, so we got a
He'll
lot to
become a
do.
believer. He'll become a believer now that he's there.
I'm a believer. I couldn't see that Bigfoot if I tried. Okay, so let's do this. I got a sponsor, I got a song, and then you got a tip.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do
Excited.
it. Okay, here we go. By now, everyone has seen or heard that professional golfer Tiger Woods handed Justin Thomas a tampon after outdriving the man who is half his age. We at Acme Tampon can tell you that over half of our sales are to men. Earl Haas, the creator of the first tampon, and Gertrude Tendrich, the creator of the first commercially produced tampon, marketed the device to both men and women. Women using it to help with their menstruation, men using it to belittle and demean other men. Throughout history, we have seen the tampon handoff. Throughout history, we have seen the tampon handoff. Did you just miss a game-winning three-pointer? Tampon. Did your brother just beat you in a Super Bowl? 2 tampons for him. And it's not just for sports fails. Did your buddy just blow a huge presentation? Tampon. Did somebody just load 3 trucks with the wrong kind of tampons? Tampon. Did a certain former football player just get caught funneling funds meant for poor people into a volleyball stadium for his daughter's college? Tampon. Here at Acme Tampon, we encourage everyone to buy and, strangely, carry around with you plenty of tampons. You'll never know when you need one.
That's a good. Actually, I just want to expand on that for a second. So could I say the? I'm not gonna say the P word. I'll say vagina.
What?
Vagina.
Yeah, because that's the word, Ted.
Yeah.
Pussy's not.
So basically, I'm assuming the whole premise. Look, it's like I'm in the frat again. It's like grade school stuff. Look at this guy. Wait, let me know when Mr. Giggles is done. Hang on.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Oh, anyway,
So that's Acme. That's the old company from the Roadrunner.
That's
so
the
now
Roadrunner.
Yeah. Real company.
well, actually, with all the money he spent, the Roadrunner spent to get stuff from Acme, couldn't have he just bought like a pre-cooked Roadrunner, like frozen?
Exactly.
Pre-cooked Bugs Bunny. Yeah. Okay, Teddy, can we keep going?
Where did this guy get the money from?
He's a
he
road
like
runner. He's got tons of money. It's
He just steals the money.
Ted, roadrunners are one of the wealthiest animals out there.
Was there Amazon delivery back then? It just showed up.
Where do you think the cocaine came from? Cocaine Bear from a roadrunner. Yeah.
So there was a comic a while ago. So basically, I'm assuming the whole premise of Tiger Woods handing Justin Thomas a tampon after he outdrove him is to show that you're vagina, that I'm like more of a man than you. Because
Yes, Ted. Okay. No one is.
But here's the funny thing: the vagina is actually like a way stronger muscle than the penis. I mean, think about it. A baby comes out of a vagina. A vagina could have multiple orgasms. If you ever get kicked in the dick, kicked in the balls, do you know
Part of Ted's tip,
how that
Carol?
hurts? You know how much that hurts? I mean, a penis is like a kind of a weak gland. It's like a blood-filled gland that may or may not get hard, depending on the circumstances.
Ted, you don't have to share any of your personal problems at all. Ted, can we just move on?
Okay, I'm just saying. You know, so it's
Okay.
just a weird joke, you know. So like, you should be a dick because I mean that's kind of a weaker.
So you're saying Tiger Woods should have slipped him like some kind of marital aid, some kind of like a vibrator,
phallic,
dildo?
like a phallic. He should, he should have slipped him like an eggplant, like a phallic, like a 6-inch eggplant. that Justin Thomas just could have deep throated right there in front of all of us.
Okay. Why?
Not that he isn't doing that already, of course.
Why would he do that? That's Ted. Can we just move on?
Okay, we can.
And you're drinking coffee.
It's
My
a good.
God.
It's a good thing our guest didn't hear any of that. So that's good.
Oh, jeez. Well, if he's smart, he won't show up. All right, here we go. I got a song. Are you ready?
Yes.
Ted gave a tip that's from hell. He really thought it was swell. It turned out to be crap. He tried to make it sound good. Too bad that it never would. And now he ruined our lives. His tips are scary, and he's really hairy. The last tip ruined Jerry. Where is this tip going, Teddy? Hey, you just tipped me. And this sounds crazy, but that made sense. And I'm feeling hazy. And all the other guys try to trick me, but they all make me feel icky.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
I like that video, by the way. Oh,
Very nice.
So did you know there was
Nicely done.
a guy who
Gracias.
went on a dating app and he posted he had a fake photo of the guy from that video. The guy who takes off his shirt while he's mowing the lawn, and that was his dating app profile. And people believed it.
Oh my God, dude, that is
Hey, call me maybe.
that is absolutely terrifying. Okay,
Yeah.
so the tip for this week, and Travis, I see you right there. We're almost done. We're almost ready for you. We just got to finish our Ted's tips. The tip idea this week comes from Sita in Madhya Pradesh, India. And these are her exact words. I'm coming to America in the fall to complete my doctorate. What is a good tip for me to meet an American man, and this is the most painful thing I've ever said, who is as funny and as smart as Ted?
Well, Sid, I appreciate the shout out, but this is a scripted show, so what I say might be predetermined. Just like what Tom Cruise says, and
When did this become scripted?
just like when Tom
What
Cruise.
was her last name? Was her last name my face, Matt? What was it?
No, it was not that. No. We're not doing that one. That's just such a cheap joke. It's too cheap for us. All right, so Teddy, how is Sita?
Yeah.
How is Sita going to find a guy? Oh God, this is the lowest point of my life. As smart and as funny as you.
Well, number one, that's not going to happen because there's only one me. But the good news is, you can get really close. It's like you can get close to the sun, but you can't go to the sun because we'll all burn up. It's like Icarus. You can fly close to the sun, but if you go to the sun, then you might be dead. So, no, but seriously, Sid, what I would do
Seriously.
if I were you, obviously there's tons of dating apps. We got Tinder, we got Zeus, we got Ashley Madison, we got Bumble, we have Hinge. I don't know. There's probably like 50 more apps out there. You can probably meet a guy like that.
You're telling? Did you just tell her to get on Ashley Madison? Wait, I missed which one. Are you telling her to get on Grindr?
Well, I'm just Grindr's for
Oh, is that for guys?
Yes,
I
for
don't
guys.
know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but the point is, there's multiple dating apps
that
where a
explains a
woman
lot.
could meet, a guy, and yeah, there's some bad guys, there's some fake profiles, there's some good guys, or. Yeah, I mean, it's just too tough to meet somebody organically these days. Like if you go to like a bar or restaurant to make eye contact or do it the old-fashioned way, there's just too many variables involved. So my advice to you is have a pre-check list of questions to ask the guy, and if he's kind of in the ballpark of what you're looking for, like if he's clever enough to figure stuff out, then that's a good clue that might be the guy for you. It's no guarantee, but depending on how he responds to different stimuli or different situations, or like I said, the extreme thing, and this is actually sort of funny to me, like how these women, they don't want a guy in their life, but they want to have a kid. So they go to like a sperm bank.
So
they go to a sperm bank.
Are you offering to impregnate people?
No, I'm not.
Are you saying that's what guys should do to get more chicks?
No, but what I'm saying is like
that would be the greatest thing of all
So
time.
what the funny thing is, like I hear about these women, they go to these sperm banks and they flip through like a brochure and they see like a guy, like this guy graduated from like Wharton Business School or Harvard. He's like a good looking guy and he's got all his hair and blah blah blah. And supposedly, I guess the presupposition is he has good genetics. So if you take his sperm, your kid's gonna be a successful adult. But the problem is half the time the doctor who inseminates them is using their own sperm. So we don't want to do that because you know whose sperm you're getting.
So is your tip telling Sita not to go to a sperm
My
bank
sperm bank is
when she's here to visit find guys? Don't find guys in a sperm bank?
get the sperm in person. That's what I'm saying.
Jesus
We're
Christ.
Sita, get
Oh
the
my
sperm
God.
in person. That's my tip. When it all
I
comes
think
down
she's
to
going
it.
to change her tip after that answer. I
Oh
think
my
she's gonna
gosh.
look
And
out.
speaking of tips, Steve, that the tip, the sperm comes out of the tip, as we all know. So just get the sperm in person, Sita. When you finally make your decision, when you finally make an informed decision. I can't make the decision for you. I mean, I can give you a lot of tips about how to find the guy,
That's
There's
what
a
she
lot of
wanted.
there's a lot of cloak and dagger stuff involved.
Ted,
This could take
the
hours.
one thing that she wanted was how to meet a guy. Now, not how to get sperm from a guy. I think everyone in the world knows how to get sperm from a guy.
I think the whole premise is she wants to meet the guy to eventually, not that minute, of course, but eventually, not that second. I'm not talking about visiting Stonehenge or seeing the Mona Lisa or something. Yeah, of course they're going to go on play dates and blah blah blah. But eventually, I'm talking about the long term.
Yeah,
you want to get it in person.
Okay, can
not
we
through a catalog?
Okay, we need to finish this because our guest is here.
I'm done.
Okay, and I feel like Sita has made it. She's now realized her terrible mistake, and now she's like, how do I make sure I don't meet anybody who's exactly like Ted?
Sita just got the best advice of her life. You're welcome, Sita. You can thank me later.
Oh my God. Okay, so our guest this week is going to talk about. I'm sorry. You know what? I get teary-eyed. One of the darkest and saddest moments in U.S. history. I don't want to bring anybody down, but gentlemen, please welcome, and I'm not going to mess this up, Travis Spangenburg from the American Prohibition Museum. Travis, thanks for being here.
Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's going
Thanks
well.
for having me.
Hey, no problem. Every time I think about an America without an America without alcohol. Oh my God! I just
Very
get
sad.
It is. It's what I mean. I guess drugs could just replace it, but yeah, okay.
Well, they already have.
Yeah, I'm kind of not. I'm
That's
kind
what we
of.
did.
Well, just
So first off, it's worth saying if you think that Prohibition era was an America without alcohol, you're going to learn a lot in the next 30 minutes.
All right.
Oh no!
'Cause there was plenty of alcohol.
Sure.
Yeah, no.
It just wasn't being taxed by the U.S. government. That's what was going on.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Okay, so Travis, your museum, the American Prohibition Museum, is in Savannah, Georgia. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
That's correct.
And you know what's weird? We just had a couple of players from the Savannah Bananas on.
Cool.
Yeah. Have you seen any of their games?
I haven't caught a game. I'm not a big. It's hard to get me to sports, although it seems like the kind of sports that I would quite enjoy. I know plenty of people who go religiously to the games, but I've not been myself. No, the tickets are hard to get.
Yeah,
they're pretty popular.
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
they're sold out for like months.
Out, yeah.
So where's Savannah in relation to Birmingham? Because I've been to Georgia, but not Savannah.
Wait, isn't Birmingham in
Birmingham's
Alabama.
Alabama.
I'm sorry, wrong place. Yeah. Never mind. Cancel that.
So Travis,
How about
would you
Atlanta?
say
How about Atlanta?
far away?
So it's you basically get on a very long 2-lane highway where everybody drives too fast and too stupid. It's called 16, and that goes basically from Macon to Savannah.
Okay.
And there's it's like 4.5 hours up the road
Gotcha.
or down the road from Atlanta. We're in that little corner down at the bottom of South Carolina. They call us the Low Country.
Gotcha.
Around all the coastal islands and all that.
So is that considered like the deep south? Are you still considered like the deep south?
Yeah,
where
it's pretty deep. We kind of have our own little thing going, though. You have the deep south, you have all the sweet tea and all that, and we certainly have that around. But we also have like this really rich, like seafood, gully beachy, soul food of our own kind on the coast. I think Charleston. We're about 2 hours south of Charleston.
Nice. I'm a big fan of the South, by the way.
Yeah,
big
me
fan.
too. Big fan of the South. Love it. Okay, so Travis, your museum's been around for about 8 years? Is that right?
It'll be 6 in May.
Okay, 6 and 8 are both even numbers. All right, so
they're between 5 and 10.
All right,
Your math is a little off.
Hey, you know what? It's I round everything. So everything's less than 50. So it's been around for less than 50 years. That's good. All right, so tell us just real quick. Tell us a little bit about the museum and how it got started.
So it's essentially it's part of Historic Tours of America, which is this really great company that I've worked for about 10 years. And we tell the stories that we call ourselves the nation's storytellers. So we're all about making sure that stories of multifaceted moments in American history get told, specifically the ones in the cities that we find ourselves in. So we operate Old Town Trolley. That's you see us in. We have 7 different cities: St. Augustine, Key West, Savannah, Washington, D.C., Nashville, Boston, and San Diego. And then we operate trolley tours there. But most of the cities have some form of museums or attractions. We run the Boston Tea Party Museums in Boston. And then we have the Harry Truman Little White House down in Key West, the Shipwreck Museum, the Key West Aquarium. And then up until 6 years ago, Savannah, despite being one of the most popular for trolley tours, did not have any kind of museum or attraction. And a exhibit on Prohibition had been seen by some of our higher ups, and they said, "This is a great story. Is there a museum to this?" It turns out there wasn't. And then the more they started digging, they started to realize that Savannah had some connections to both alcohol history and Prohibition laws themselves. And we were like, hey, that might be a pretty good place to throw a Prohibition museum.
Yeah.
Wow,
And 6 years later,
that is
here we
really
are.
cool because all the cities that you named are awesome places that I have been that are really fun. I mean,
Yeah.
all of those. I mean, I just love that. We, Steve, we were at the Key West. I don't know. Were you there when we went to the aquarium, the Key West
We
Aquarium?
weren't at the same time, but I've been to Key West. I didn't know about this trolley, which I'd like to go. I'm in Miami
That's-
actually, so
That's where it started.
It started there, which makes
Yeah,
sense.
Key West.
Oh man, I love that. Okay, so this is pretty wild. You guys have, besides being a museum, and we'll talk about some of the stuff that's in there. You guys actually have a speakeasy, like a bar in there, right?
Sure do. Yeah, so the museum, not only do you have all these galleries with all these artifacts and wax figures, but it ends in a speakeasy where Monday through Saturday, we can't sell on Sundays, but Monday through Saturday during the day, during your museum tour, you can buy a pre-1930 cocktail. So recipes that range from the 1920s to the 1910s, all the way back to the early 1800s, some from the mid 1800s. And I call it educational drinking. You can take all, it's true. So I always say the museum works on your five senses. You can come in, you can see the history, you can see the artifacts, you can hear about it from our guides, you can hear some of the sounds, like the music from the era. You can touch things. We have like Tommy guns that you can pick up and take photos with, and protest signs. And then you smell when you walk into the speakeasy, you smell some of our fresh ingredients like lemon juice being squeezed. And then number 5, taste. You can come have yourself a cocktail.
Yeah.
Question, Travis.
That's pretty cool.
So the cocktail back then, is it 150% moonshine or
No, so it depends. I mean, not the recipes that are left over. Certainly, especially in the South, a lot of the illegal drinking that was happening was going to be, moonshine, especially up in North Georgia and Alabama, North Carolina, Tennessee, all those. But in the cities, you would have had access to both people making it in their bathtub, and it was trash liquor. Gin, just the stuff they made on their stove. And then in cities, you would have had people cutting good stuff with bad stuff and kind of trying to eke out as much as they could from it. And then you also had, in a lot of cities, like in Chicago, you had establishments that would have had access to imports from outside the country, like good rum from the Bahamas and good gin from Europe and good whiskey from Canada. So it really ran the gamut.
So let me ask you this: when we were doing this prohibition thing, and because I didn't even think about Europe, was everybody over there just laughing? I mean, were we just like a goofy joke?
Yeah. There was this really great quote from I want to say it's a Dutch paper, or they basically said something like how the world must be laughing at us for making such asses of ourselves.
Wait, was that from yesterday or from 1920s?
Either or, right? So a lot of I think they would be laughing a little more if they weren't making so much money off of it, because they had all these expatriates. You had the people who would have been sitting here and going to speakeasies and doing illegal stuff to get their liquor, but a lot of the more wealthy people would just go over to Europe. You think about all the great writers and artists of the time. If you've ever seen that movie Midnight in Paris, where all those guys are hanging out in Paris bars, that's why. F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway, a lot of performers like Josephine Baker, they all kind of fled this liquor ban. In the Caribbean, a lot of the famous cocktails were being created in Havana and Cuba because Americans had fled south to Cuba, and they would come here for vacation. And that's how the daiquiri basically got popularized. The classic daiquiri came about. Hemingway was all over the Caribbean and Key West because you could get good liquor.
Yeah, I thought Hemingway didn't Hemingway live in Cuba, and he was a big rum aficionado.
Yeah, he had his own daiquiri version at the bar. It's called La Florida in Havana. It's still there today. And he had his own daiquiri version that people still make.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be? I think that would be really cool if I was such like an aficionado and such a drunk that they named a drink after me. I feel like that would be my coup d'etat.
It wasn't necessarily you had to drink. You basically had to have a bit like a modicum of fame during Prohibition, and they were naming cocktails after everybody. The silent film star Mary Pickford had her own. Charlie Chaplin had his own. The best way to get alcohol named after you in this country is to be anti-alcohol. A lot of the famous movers and shakers of the whole Prohibition movement all have distilleries and bars and liquors named after them, even up to today.
You mean like kind of like as a joke?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like totally having a go at them. Billy Sunday is a really good example. If you've ever heard of him, he was a professional baseball player out of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gave it all
Billy
up
Sunday. Is that Rick Monday or Billy Sunday?
Billy Sunday. William Ashley Sunday.
Yeah.
So he gave up
Sunday.
baseball for what reason?
He basically became born again, and he tried to do preaching and baseball, and they just kind of conflicted. So he made a choice. It was a good choice because he made buttloads of money. He's basically the foundation of modern evangelism. His wife, after he died, mentored a young Billy Graham.
Oh, that's how I heard. Yeah, that's how I heard of him. Yeah, because I heard of Billy Sunday. I didn't know what context it was, but thanks for clarifying
and
that.
that all came.
You may have heard of Billy Sunday from the song "Chicago," which Sinatra covered, where it has the lyrics "The town that Billy Sunday couldn't shut down," and
Gotcha.
that's what that's a reference to.
I see. Yeah.
I honestly,
I didn't know the historical context of Billy Sunday.
I honestly had
either.
no idea that that's what that was from.
Yeah.
Isn't that that is so crazy that this giant movement of not drinking had turned it has all these different connections. That is so awesome.
So
It permeates culture even today.
I guess
one of my favorite examples of what I'm talking about is there's a distillery just outside of Chicago in Evanston, Illinois, and that is the home base of the second president of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, which was one of the big groups. This woman named Frances Willard basically made her home, her headquarters for that organization. And today there's a distillery called Few Distillery, FEW, Frances Elizabeth Willard.
Yeah, you know what's funny?
Wow.
It's funny. I'm actually talking with those guys and trying to get them on the show. They're interested in coming on the show and bringing their wares. Is that insane? Yeah, I actually talked to those guys. They're really cool dudes.
They went. It's almost like a badge of honor these days. I have to think that just a little bit. Some of these, not all of them, but some of the temperance people might be a little at least heartened that our drinking culture has noticeably changed. We drink about a third of what we did at the time, and we honestly don't have the same problems that made us want prohibition to begin with.
Okay, so let's do that really fast because I asked Teddy how long prohibition lasted this weekend, and he said 5 years, and I'm like, that's wrong.
I was wrong. Yeah.
So okay,
wrong.
so I'll do this part. Prohibition lasted, and I couldn't believe it, from 1920 to 1933. But give us like a little background on why did this all happen?
13 years, 10 months, 18 days. Who's counting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, I think that's one of the things that I think people are most shocked at coming through the museum, because we all come in here. I'm a cocktail guy. I love drinking. I do it responsibly. But when you kind of hold that love of drinking, you can kind of dismiss the idea that maybe there might have been some reasons for this. It's easy to view it through our modern drinking culture and look around and go, well, these restaurants and bars, they're cutting people off and they're only serving people over 21. But that's simply not the environment that Americans found themselves in the 19th century. The average American was drinking 7 gallons of pure alcohol a year. That amounts to about 90 bottles of whiskey across the course of an entire year. Now, that's the average. It gets worse. It always gets worse. Yeah. That is the average American. That is not even your average American drinker. The teetotalers, the non-drinkers, are factored into that number, and they're actually skewing it downwards. So your average American drinker is drinking 4 or 5 bottles of whiskey a week. Pair that with the fact that we have saloon culture at the time. We don't have bar culture. We have saloon culture. And saloons don't cut people off. They don't, in large, they don't really have an incentive to not sell people as much alcohol as they need or as much as they request. And so you've got a whole legion of saloons that are all propped up by very, very wealthy brewers serving until whole communities are under their control. And it's not just alcohol at these saloons. Saloons are post offices, and they are meeting places. If you were an immigrant at the time, say you just came from Germany, you don't know a lick of English, you get to you made it out to Kansas to start a new life. and there's nobody who speaks German except for at the local saloon, which is owned by a German brewer or a German bartender. And so it's a place you can go to have translators. You can vote in a saloon. You can spend a night in a saloon. You can get fresh water in a saloon in a time where it's really hard to get fresh water. So saloons essentially make themselves very hard to extricate from the community. And that means that once they start over-serving and victimizing vulnerable people, it is very hard to get rid of them.
No, hold on. Let me ask you something. Is Savannah different than Chicago? Because you keep saying that people get cut off and they don't drink that much. I don't see that happening here.
I mean, shoot, I know plenty of bartenders. My girlfriend's a bartender. I got a whole cast of bartenders in here that are that will not put up with any of that stuff. Whether it happens or not is one question, but the fact is there's a legal responsibility where if that person goes and hurts somebody or hurts themselves or have been overserved.
Yeah, like dram shop. Yeah, so like, yeah, if you overserve somebody knowingly, then I think that person gets into an accident, then the bar can be sued under the dram shop law, which means that you knowingly, but so that's a great historical context, because I was actually thinking, like, why would obviously we're talking about a very small group of politicians who are basically speaking on behalf of the entire country, and we could extrapolate that to abortion argument too, where they're deciding for the entire country this is going to be the law of the land. And I'm just saying, the day before they made that vote, that's interesting because, like I said, they're not representing the entire country; they're just representing themselves and their personal belief system. Right?
So an interesting part of this is that there is no vote in a small way on prohibition. Prohibition is a constitutional amendment, which means state legislatures of 36 or more states needed to all vote on it to get it passed. This is actually a movement that came from the grassroots, and there are nefarious influences from lobbying groups, namely the Anti-Saloon League.
Yeah.
But it really starts as a movement by the least politically powerful people, women. Women are the ones who stand up at first in the 1870s and 80s and say, our homes are destroyed, our husbands are spending all the money, we can't divorce them, we can't own property, we can't earn income for ourselves, and we can't vote. And there's actually a kind of a grassroots activism movement before any of it gets into legislatures or anything like that.
Well, plus too, it's like cigarettes. Like, that's before you knew about the health effects of alcohol. People didn't know it caused cirrhosis of the liver or could kill you. Yeah. So you thought it was okay. It was okay.
So the first real guy in the United States to suggest maybe this stuff is actually hurting us, a lot of people thought it was more beneficial, and they were right to an extent, because water was it was hard to guarantee that it was clean and that it was sanitized.
Right.
So what you found is that, chlorination doesn't come about until the end of the 1800s. And so what you would find is a lot of times these men who went into saloons weren't even necessarily looking for a cold one. They were just looking for hydration, and they would get there and the bartenders would then go, hey, have another, have another, have another. So you have this situation where, yeah, you're right. To an extent, it is just better to drink alcohol for a certain amount of time. Benjamin Rush, one of the founding fathers, published a thing about, hey, alcohol might actually be really bad for everybody. But he was a minority at the time, for sure. All the rest of the founding fathers were pretty blitzed most of the time.
Yeah. Well, they thought the Earth was flat. The Earth revolved around revolved around the sun and all that good stuff, or the sun revolved around the Earth.
There's still people that believe all that.
Yeah,
so,
Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
Hey, Travis, back to the women's movement, and I saw on your website, and I'm an idiot, so I get I'm not a history buff, but I get all my history from Drunk History, and I saw the episode.
This is my favorite topic. I know where you're going.
Granny, and I know that you have an exhibit about her. I don't know if you have
about who?
Hatchet Granny, the Hatchet Granny.
Carrie Nation.
Carrie Nation.
I only know her by that name. And she was not a pretty woman, by the way, so I don't know if you have someone that actually walks around and
we have a wax figure.
Okay.
We have a wax figure of her. She's actually my favorite figure to talk about, because she's another, like Prohibition itself. It's another one of those issues that, sure, it looks one way at the start of it, but when you look deeper, there's a lot more complexity to it than.
Wasn't she really? She was like big, like 6'2" or something.
It's a little bit of a point of contention historically. A lot of sources say about 6 feet tall or just under 6 feet tall.
Okay.
But then you look at pictures and that doesn't seem to track based on like the scale. But as far as like historical record, the only things I ever see are, that she's pretty tall.
Yeah, and she
would
go.
Oh, go ahead. In your museum, so what do you have with her section, or what's the
So we have a whole it's basically a makeshift saloon that's been smashed up by her, and then she's standing there with a hatchet, 6 feet tall, just under 6 feet tall, and she you can see not only the play scene, but you can also see there's a whole case of artifacts that she would have sold to basically bail herself out of jail, which are hatchet pins and model hatchets and her autobiography, lecture tour tickets, things like. So we have a lot of her artifacts that she would have sold.
And she would straight up go into a place and then with her hatchet just destroy the place. Right?
Yeah, she would start with rocks and bricks when she first started doing it, but she kind of picked up the hatchet several bars in, and she switches to the hatchet, and it becomes her trademark weapon. She likes the grip of it, and it seems pretty crazy, like something an insane person would do. But the thing, and a lot of the history that you see, even online, even from rather, up to par sources will say she was a crazy woman. She was insane, but she's extremely methodical about it. She tries to only smash up bars in jurisdictions that have already outlawed alcohol, because what you guys know as Prohibition is that 1920 to 1933, but many states worked up to Prohibition. They they would pass it statewide, and then other states would follow suit. Kansas had been dry since 1881, and they were the longest state to stay dry from 1881 to 1948.
Oh.
So they were dry for 67 years. So this woman is living. She's a woman who lost her husband to alcoholism.
Yeah, I was going to say there has to be some
motive
for doing that.
Wait, hold on. Like lost, like he just left, or he died.
They went hiking in the woods, and he slipped into a bush, and he's gone.
Slipped into a bush.
Yeah,
sounds like there's some insurance money involved.
He drank himself to death and left her with a 1-year-old daughter to take care of, as well as his own mother who was depending on him.
So she had a vendetta. She had a vendetta. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that one had been cooking for a good 30 years before she ever started bar smashing.
Yeah.
She lost him in the 1870s and went through some really destitute times as she, a single woman, a widowed woman, had to care for her baby and her aging mother-in-law.
Yeah.
She eventually married another guy named David Nation, which is where she got the name.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a happy marriage, very much a marriage of convenience in the American frontier.
Was he a hatchet maker?
No, I was going to say it sounds like he's American Indian if his name's Nation. I wonder if he's like
There are some sources that say that he suggested the hatchet, but I don't know if I believe him so much.
You know what? That's just a guy.
A lot of folklore.
No, that is just a guy trying to take credit for like a really good idea. You can just see it. Oh, no, woman wouldn't come up with that. It'd be a guy. Okay, so let me ask you this. I kind of looked some stuff up. Is this true that North Dakota, when they became a state, they were a dry state? When they became a state, is that
based on, I don't know specifically about North Dakota, but based on the timing of when North Dakota came into the Union, that would be. Arizona's the same way. Arizona came in as a dry state as well.
They ain't dry
to
anymore.
My knowledge.
They ain't dry anymore.
No,
okay.
Well, they are dry. It's a dry heat.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay.
They'll be the first to tell you that.
So after all this stuff, and this is kind of cool, I found some things. Mississippi kept its prohibition until 1966. Is that right?
Yes.
They kept on going.
That's one of my favorite facts.
Yeah. And
essentially what happened when Prohibition ended is, sure, national Prohibition ended, which places like Illinois and New Jersey, where I'm from in New York, that meant Prohibition was over because we never had statewide Prohibition to begin with. But if you had statewide Prohibition like Georgia and Kansas and Mississippi and South Carolina, Tennessee, it was still in effect until your politicians, until your legislature saw the writing on the walls and said, let's get rid of this. And in some places, it wasn't even a matter of the politicians, but a matter of the citizenry saying, we wanted this to begin with. We didn't want national prohibition to go away. Let's keep statewide prohibition. Kansas had pretty dry sentiment until the 40s. Mississippi as well. It helped that Mississippi, it's so easy to get moonshine there. You know, I'm sure anybody who was thirsty didn't have a problem getting it. But Mississippi is the latest state to stay dry, and then Kansas is the longest.
Okay, so I found this one really, really cool. So in 2004, even in 2004, half of the counties in Mississippi were still dry. And this is my favorite. There are 17 states that have laws that don't allow dry counties. You can't not sell alcohol in 17 states. You have to. There are no rules. You cannot have a rule to not sell alcohol.
Well, it's funny,
Isn't that awesome?
Like Utah, I was in Utah, Salt Lake City years ago, and I remember like their liquor store looks like it's like something run by the state. The state runs the liquor store, so it's like this little cinder block building that's very. I mean, you could buy it, but it's very. It's almost like going to the DMV. In Utah. I don't know if it's
Utah's got so many rules.
Liquor laws are the weirdest things in this entire country.
Yeah.
Because what I'm describing is that you had all these laws that all had their unique little statehoods. Georgia had its own laws built from the ground up, and then every state took those apart in their own little ways. And what they would do is they'd make concessions. So like in Georgia, if you had a lot of the citizenry saying we want alcohol back, the Dries would oppose it, and they'd say, okay, we'll give the Dries Sundays, but here's the weird. So in Savannah, you can't open a bar on Sunday if 51% of your food revenue annually does not come from, or 51% of your revenue doesn't come from food. So basically places like pubs and restaurants can be open, but places like us or just your average dive bar can't be open. So it's all food based. In Utah, until recently, Utah is a great example because Mormonism makes for some really weird, they have their own personal relationship with alcohol in Utah. And they had this thing called the Zion Curtain where you could get alcohol, you get a cocktail, but you could not watch it being made. They had to take the ingredients in the back.
Is this almost like the COVID mask? It's like the COVID mask where you walk in with the mask. So if you walk in, you have to wear the mask, but as soon as you sit down, you can take the mask off, as if the COVID's not going to know that you didn't take the mask off, right? So it's all silly stuff. It's silly stuff, right?
It's a little bit more of a show with this one. And they
that is so crazy.
I've seen some states where you can order a drink, but you have to bring it to your table. You can go up to the bar and you can grab it, but they can't do table service.
You can you can check out, but you can never leave. Like the Hotel California? Okay,
Hotel
gotcha.
California.
All right, so here.
I was just in Zion, and right after the show I did with you guys, they have these rules like the liquor, not more than 5%. Every beer would be 5%. And we couldn't get a drink without getting food. So I like to pub crawl. So every place we went to, we had to get food. And
mozzarella sticks.
You couldn't walk around with your drink. Like you couldn't walk to your friend across the bar and start talking. You had to sit while you drank. And that was just last summer.
Wait, where is this?
In Utah. When we were in Utah, Zion National Park.
That is so crazy.
My own personal struggle with drinking in other cities is that I'm so spoiled. I turned 21 in Kentucky in a wet county that was next to a bunch of dry counties, so I learned about it there. But then, of course, I was living in Savannah already at the time, and it's been 10 years since then. And I live in Savannah now, and I've done most of my drinking in Savannah. I've also been to Vegas. And Savannah, you can, within the historic district, there is a zone where you can walk with your drink.
Just like Vegas. Just like Vegas. You walk outside in public.
It's like the Vegas Strip, but it's this huge zone that basically encompasses our entire historic district.
Right.
So when I go to other cities and you get to the door, you got a drink in your hand because it's just how my life works. They go, hey, you got to finish that. And I go, I have to what?
Yeah.
That is so funny. Yeah. All right, so I want to get to this, and then I want to talk about what was going on during Prohibition. But this is something I found bizarre. 7 years before Prohibition started, 50% of America was under some sort of alcohol ban.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So half of America.
That's what I'm talking about, basically. I think something like 30 states had already enacted it. It was basically the places where there was a lot of high immigrant, high Catholic, high urban area places like New York and Illinois and California that wouldn't have had it. But this movement was extremely methodical. The guy who basically got it all passed in the legislatures was a guy named Wayne Wheeler, and he was a lobbyist who had utmost control. He had a lot of money from people like the Rockefellers and the Fords to make sure that Prohibition got passed. And he wasn't just looking at the senators or the congressmen. He was looking at local city council all the way up, making sure that the only people that could win their races were dry people. And so he would basically get one state to fall dry, move on to the next one, and methodically use his connections and his money to work his way through the legislation.
So
what a horrible person.
So it's like the original cancel culture, right? If you weren't on board with this, you were persona non grata, and it's the same thing with today. Like politicians, if you don't subscribe to their belief system, so you have a very small group of people who try to foist their belief system on us collectively as a population, and if we don't quote unquote play ball with that, then we're kind of persona non grata.
But he wasn't going after citizens is the difference. He was going after politicians.
Right.
So he's more, and he was completely unelected. He had no power other than his ability to give money.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more
like George
Soros,
right? He doesn't elect he doesn't elect anybody, but he's supposedly behind the scenes of donating billions of dollars to certain political causes.
And you know what? As long as it's not stopping people from drinking, I'm good. Okay, so let's get to we're doing Prohibition. Okay, so Prohibition starts. And this is kind of weird. Now, you had said that like the saloons were all guys. Once Prohibition starts, the women start to go to speakeasies, and now
what's a speakeasy? What's a speakeasy versus a saloon?
Can I?
I'm sorry.
Can I?
Yeah.
Can I?
Speakeasy is the illegal saloon.
Yeah, it's an illegal saloon. But so guys, it's not just guys anymore. Now it's chicks drinking. And now they're involved in this whole thing. And now actually more people are, and is this true? More people were drinking after Prohibition started than before.
It kind of drops for a minute. And then, of course, with the addition of an entire demographic, an entire gender, there's going to be so much more people drinking. It drops for a minute. And what I haven't done a lot of research on this, but I personally believe that you have this drop because everybody, when Prohibition starts, goes, are we going to get in trouble if we drink? And then when they see generally that enforcement's not happening, that's when they all pounce and the speakeasies become really popular and they've all finished their stock from before Prohibition started.
Yeah, how can you enforce it? How can you enforce it?
It's a really thankless job, and it's very they didn't put enough money behind it, and they didn't put enough people. It was never going to work.
You're gonna clone Elliot Ness times like a million.
That's what so here's the thing with enforcement is that there were only 3,000 federal agents dedicated to Prohibition at any one time, half of which were desk agents. So like you got 1,500 guys out there and they were hoping that local police and state police would help, but that would work in a place where local governments were on board with Prohibition. But in a place like Chicago or New York City where they're not going to put their local guys at risk for it. And then in places, so that's just urban, but in rural places, the cops are all friends with, they're such small towns.
The cops are drinking with everybody, right?
Yeah. So it just becomes very, very difficult.
Well, do you know what the definition of a regulator is? A regulator is someone with a feather duster trying to stop a herd of elephants. That's what a regulator is.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah. So
anyway, you asked a question that I don't know that I answered.
Oh no, that's okay. So once Prohibition starts, crime goes up incredibly, right? Like it goes up like 50%. There's way more. I'm reading this. There's way more murders and suicides during Prohibition than basically at any time in American history.
Unintended consequences,
right?
Unintended consequences.
Yeah, certainly. It's especially specifically with violent crime or like property crime. They find during Prohibition that it's not just alcohol related crime, although that stuff is way up. So you have the alcohol crime where it's the gangsters trying to take hold of the control of the alcohol market and the murders.
Well, Al Capone. Al Capone is a perfect example. He was a bootlegger, not really a gangster per se, but he was making $20 million,
$100 million
in 1920. Had the mayor of Chicago in his pocket, of course.
$100 million. The average person was making $1,000 a year, I think. Right? Is that? I think I saw that on your website.
It's on the website,
right?
yeah,
something like that.
And Al Capone made $100 million a year.
And they got him for tax evasion out of all this.
What is that worth today? It's gotta be
about $1 billion.
105 million.
Right.
So I mean, and that's incredible. So all the things that they wanted, because basically what they wanted people to stop drinking. They wanted people to be healthier. They wanted people to stay out of the bars and go home and get a good day's work done. And all of these things
support their families.
Yeah, and all these things that happened were like almost the exact opposite of what they wanted. Right.
Yeah, it sucks because as much as we can look back at it and we can all laugh at it because it is a little bit of a joke and the failure of it is astronomical, and that's something to take seriously. I look at it, they were so optimistic. Billy Sunday going into Prohibition said hell will be forever for rent because Prohibition was beginning. So they had this idea that, and it made sense. A lot of the crime was happening because of alcohol. People were being abused because of their drunken fathers. Families were falling into ruin because of the money going away. So it tracked logically, but you're right. Basically, the opposite happened in a lot of ways. You brought it up with the women specifically. That's one of the sadder things, which is for a century of this movement, basically, American women were looking at this issue and going, if we let alcohol run rampant, the moral decay of our society is going to fall upon this country. And for that, a lot of that meant, sexual perversion and, a wildness and drinking culture. And the tool by which they try to clamp down on that moral decay and stop it and stop the flow, it ends up creating the speakeasy environment, which leads to basically a sexual revolution where women realize that they can cut their hair the way they want, they can wear makeup, they can wear the clothing they want, they can go out with other single girls at speakeasies and party, have a girls' night out, they can go on dates with other single men at speakeasies, party until 3, 4, 5, 7 in the morning,
or other women, at speakeasies, right? I mean, let's not forget about that part. So I mean,
the flappers.
It's all
the flappers.
It's Wild West.
One
now,
of my favorite articles, historical articles, has the title "When Flappers Flap, Mothers Mourn." The mothers and grandmothers of the flappers were horrified at the environment that they had helped create. It was you got to feel a little bad for them. They really thought they were looking out for their daughters and their sons, and it didn't lead that way. And can we blame Prohibition totally on that? I think that was only going to last so long. This whole kind of Edwardian sensibilities, the Pride and Prejudice feel of everything. I think we were about due for that sort of revolution, and it was going to come. But they definitely, I think they hastened it, and I think they probably felt the pain from that.
Okay, so this. Oh, go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
Travis, back to your museum. So you have a speakeasy or a replica speakeasy as well. There's one locally in Chicago that was fascinating. They had like a bookshelf that opened to get into the room and the flappers and everything, and it was an amazing experience. So you have something similar besides the.
You're talking about the Green Mill, which is on Broadway
and Arcade in St. Charles.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, I remember
the Green Mill. The Green Mill is where my mind goes to because Jack McGurn owned that place. The gangster. That's on my radar if I visit Chicago. I'm going to go to the Green Mill.
Yeah, it's still there.
So we basically the way you enter our speakeasy is you're going through the galleries, and then suddenly you come to this big metal door with a doorbell on it, a sliding window, and a guy lets you in.
Nice.
It's a cool little gimmick.
That is
password or something or not?
You'll figure it out if you come. You gotta kind of banter with the guy behind the door a little bit.
Very nice.
I like that.
We also run cocktail classes in the speakeasy Monday through Saturday, and we kind of teach this whole idea of how cocktails are made the right way, and it's a good time.
That sounds really cool. Now I noticed, and I think this is smart. You guys are closed on St. Patrick's Day. And I'm assuming that's to keep the Irish out, and that's a good move. That is a very good move, sir.
That would be very in line with the legacy of some of the Prohibition movement.
they need a break. They need a little me time.
Yeah. Do you guys know about Savannah's St. Patrick's Day?
No, I do not.
Oh my God.
Bananas! It's our Mardi Gras essentially. We have a 4-hour parade, the second largest parade in the entire world. And it essentially turns into a big green ocean downtown. And there's green beer. We dye the fountains green, and it is a party. If it falls on the right or the wrong day, based on your perspective, it's a whole weekend. The weekend before, we do St. Practice Day on that Saturday, so that's a party day. And then I think it's one of those things that I've kept my own childlike wonder of it, where I'm like, oh, it's a fun parade, it's a festival. But some Savannahans are so worn out from it all the time. Some of them hide in their houses. Some of them go on vacation that week. I go downtown. We have fun.
That's good.
That is awesome.
I know how to do it right.
That's good.
It sounds like an idiot field trip. You got to add that to your list because
you guys.
I want to go there.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I want to
know
check
what
it out.
the funniest people on St. Patrick's Day are? The people who just plan their trip. They just planned it and they didn't do enough research, or they didn't find out that St. Patrick's Day was such a big deal. And so it's just these innocent tourists who just want to see historic Savannah, and they walk out of their hotels and there's 9,000 drunk people walking down Bay Street or River Street at 9 a.m.
Wow.
And they're just like, what happened?
Father, why does that man not wear pants?
Are you Oliver Twist now?
I didn't start drinking until I was 19.
Well,
and
that's
my
sad.
first St. Patrick's Day, I made up for
What
it.
took you so long?
My first St. Patrick's Day down here, I was sober, and I just came downtown, and we went to the worst parts of it. I was in college at the time, and I had never seen that level of... And then it's crazy because the next day... I don't know how the city does it. And the city isn't famous for organization of like their cleaning services or stuff like that. Like we're a pretty typical city in that way. But the place just, it's like all the trash is gone, the everything's cleaned up, everybody's scraped off the floor, and
system,
the city looks like it did the week before.
Nice.
That is really
we do it very well.
That is really cool. Okay, so getting back to Prohibition. Now this is kind of weird, and I thought this was actually kind of funny. Pharmacies, tell me if this is true. Pharmacies could prescribe alcohol during Prohibition.
Yeah, so that's there are two loopholes in Prohibition essentially that allow for legal purchase during Prohibition. One is sacramental wine; your priest or your rabbi can still get wine. The other is medicinal whiskey. A lot of doctors believed in it as a cure, as a medicine, and not just. I'm not talking just medicines with an alcohol content. I'm talking just a bottle of whiskey with a doctor's prescription slapped on it. And so anybody with a prescription pad during Prohibition could prescribe whiskey. That includes doctors, that includes dentists, and it includes veterinarians.
Wait, is a veterinarian prescribing whiskey to my animal or to me?
It could be. I mean, they'd prescribe it to the animal, but I don't think the animal would ever see a drop of it.
So is that where
you
cocaine?
Find that doctor. You gotta find that doctor. That's got to be your primary physician from now on.
And then pharmacies could. I just read about that today. I was like, what is this all about?
I think it was a Prohibition story. I really do. I think Cocaine Bear was a Prohibition story.
Yeah, but do you see the parallel now between like say the doctor before like THC or all these legal dispensaries came about? That was the same thing. Doctors could prescribe medicinal marijuana, and now it's kind of like common. Now you can kind of get it with a medical card. So that was kind of like the precursor to legalizing, basically THC and certain type of marijuanas and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just kinda, backwards. Sort of. Because alcohol was like this big popular thing, illegal thing first, and then it becomes illegal, and we go, oh, well, how can we loophole it?
Yeah.
And then weed is illegal first, and then it's legal. So it's kind of flip-flopped. It's a fascinating...
Interesting.
Okay, so at that point then, pharmacies pop up all over the place, right?
Well, there's this little... this guy named Charles Walgreen had about 20 stores in the Chicago area prior to Prohibition.
Charles Walgreens.
He had over 500 nationwide by the end of Prohibition. Yeah. Essentially, Walgreens is... they don't talk about it this way, and certainly some of it is the fact that Walgreen ran a really great business. But... Prohibition was a very good time to own a pharmacy.
Sure.
I never knew that until today.
Yeah.
Joe Kennedy was a bootlegger. That's how the Kennedy family made their money.
Oh yeah.
That one's a myth.
Oh
that
really?
One's a myth.
Oh, what's
the reason that we think that is, or at least as far as we can tell, it's a myth. The reason that Joe is related to alcohol is that when Prohibition was about to end, he was already friends with all types of political types, and he and FDR's son went over to Europe and bought up a bunch of gin contracts so that when Prohibition ended and alcohol was legal, they already made all this money off of legal liquor. Right. The reason he made his money was all insider trading and real estate.
So Hunter Biden would have been proud. That's all we're saying. Hunter Biden would have been proud.
Jesus Christ. Okay,
so FDR ended Prohibition, but then made a crap load of money because of it.
Well, the president doesn't really get to end constitutional amendments. He was president when it ended, but it's and he called for its ending. He was the first major candidate to really get any steam on that little issue. But it's more of an incidental thing. I think the American people were the ones, just like with the beginning of this whole thing. Once Americans kind of asked for Prohibition, and then when it all kind of went sour, they also asked for it to end.
Oh wow, yeah, you gotta love that. Okay, so another thing about Prohibition, and this is kind of a dark thing. Prohibition helped the KKK become popular. Is that right?
Ooh, this is the crazy thing about Prohibition is I never know where you're going to go with it next because there's so many different issues.
Right.
Yeah, essentially you had this situation, especially in the South, but not just in the South, in Colorado and Ohio, where we talked about earlier, federal agents were understaffed, they were underpaid, and they couldn't do it all themselves. And the Klan saw that as an opportunity. The Klan had been defunct since the kind of late 1800s up till 1915. So they had refounded themselves, but they had virtually no power in communities. So what they did was they say, we'll help. They volunteered to help enforce prohibition, they would say, you know, I'm a little suspicious of so and so here, and they would get warrants to go after them and inspect them and bust up their stills. And they use that power at first to go after Catholics and immigrants, especially, and Jews, because they were the ones most likely to have that liquor connection. And then they use the power they gained from that to also terrorize the Black community once again. And that basically laid the foundation for them to, you know, go on to do all the horrors that they do in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on.
Interesting.
That seems crazy that you would go to the Klan for help. I mean, it just.
Well,
it
I
seems
think
like
the Klan went to them.
Well,
so
the historical
one of the
context of
thing-
that, though, makes sense.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah, it just seems like such a weird thing. Okay, so we're getting to the end. Prohibition is starting to end, and one of the main focuses of why it ends, why FDR puts an end to it, and why people want to, the federal government, and this is something I looked, lost $11 million in tax money, and if this is right, it cost the government in those 13 years over $300 million they spent trying to get people to not drink, or trying to get people to not make booze, right? Because drinking wasn't technically, drinking wasn't technically illegal. It was making it and selling it and moving it around, right?
Yes, exactly. You're exactly right. Because that shocks people coming to the museum. They walk in and they assume, well, drinking was illegal, but the amendment says nothing about consumption. It basically meant that anything that you had prior to Prohibition was yours to keep and enjoy in your own home. Mm-hmm. So the enforcement was really about the making it, the moving it around, the international smuggling,
Interesting.
you know, all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they lost tons of money. It was a battle you could not win, even if you got a bunch of guys that weren't corrupt, like Elliot Ness. You know, you go after Al Capone with a Tommy gun, and he has the money to buy 10 Tommy guns and a tank. Even if you capture Al Capone or any of these guys, you throw them into the courts, and you can get corrupt or lenient judges. You can get corrupt lawyers. You get juries that can be bribed or threatened. And then also there are one of the problems you have throughout is just that juries don't really see it as that bad of a thing. If you can get a guy on murder, that's great, because juries, by and large, we agree that murder's wrong. But there was a case here in Savannah where they caught the guys red-handed with their still, put him in front of a jury. The police testified, and it wasn't even the feds. It was the police testified, we found this, that, and the other thing. And the juries acquitted the guys, and the jury said, we didn't believe the testimony of the police. It was a breakdown where essentially the law, people were disillusioned with the law. That's why you see bank robberies. That's why you see all that crime that you talked about.
That was pretty crazy. Okay, so now this is weird. The Women's Christian Temperance Union is still around today.
Yeah, they are.
It still exists. Yeah, and here's their slogan. You ready? This is funny.
No more fun of any kind?
No. Listen. It says, "Let's cleanse ourselves from all the filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God." That is on their website. I had to look that up, man. They still exist.
That's a mouthful. That's a mouthful.
Yeah. Is that crazy? I mean, how does... it just seems weird to me that they still exist 100 years later.
Well, they don't have any of the power that they had. They basically switched to drugs and drug and prostitution as a focus after that.
Wow, they're just trying to kill our fun they're trying to kill all of our fun.
All fun.
No fun of any kind. Okay, the Anti-Saloon League that you talked about, they still exist.
So they transferred into different things. They're not around as the Anti-Saloon League. I think they became some other alcohol advocacy thing. Again, they're a specter. If there's the bones of the organization are still around, they're a specter of what they used to be. They didn't even have any power by the end of Prohibition. One of the problems that these groups had was that they were really good at the political side and the activism side of getting these things passed. But then once they got passed, they didn't have very good answers for the American public about enforcement. And they didn't really, their position was that if you guys want to drink alcohol, you need to stop. And they didn't have answers for, well, how are you going to pay for it? And how are we going to do this? And how do you solve this problem and that problem? They were against alcohol to begin with. So they didn't really want to find compromises or solutions to a lot of these problems. The famous example is that if you see it, I think in 1926 or 7, there was mass poisonings when people were drinking industrial alcohol used for industrial purposes. and it was poisoned by the government and marked with, methane, poisonous, do not drink, and people drank it anyway. And instead of having a serious conversation about how do we keep that out of people's hands, how do we effectively make sure that that is not a viable source, Wayne Wheeler called it a deliberate suicide and basically had the official public position that those guys kind of had it coming because they drank it willingly. And to a public that is watching 10,000 people die of poisoning within a couple years, that is it might be true, but it's an amazingly callous and crass way to say it. And so that's what these guys are really bad at. Public opinion just sours and sours. And this whole thing was built on a foundation of public opinion. So when they couldn't kind of keep up with it, the prohibition was always going to end.
Wow. And then finally, the National Prohibition Party, which was a political party, right, that they elected people to do this. They were still around as late as 1976. In 1976, the National Prohibition Party got 10,000 votes.
They're still around today.
Only 10,000?
What?
Yeah, so they're still around today. They what do you call it? Nominate a candidate for the presidency still. I mean, they don't get any votes, but they certainly don't get electoral votes. My favorite thing about the Prohibition Party and their national races is that, so the museum's been open since 2017, and from 2017 to early 2020, I used to use this fact as a kind of way to show their relevance, is that they had the last 2 years before 2020, their party convention, the national convention, was done via conference call. And then 2020 hits, and then we all do all of our conferences virtually. And I went, okay, it's less funny now. But I had been making fun of the Prohibition Party for having conference call, nomination processes, and then it happened to everybody else too.
Oh man, you know what? I see a future guest on the show, someone from the National Prohibition.
I'd like to hear their point of view.
That'd be great.
What would their point of view be? I'd be crying the entire time. Okay, so listen, so we got to put this thing to bed. So Travis, this is how it works. Okay, we give everybody one last word on the show. Okay, we never make our guests go first, right? Because it's you can kind of hear the other people as they kind of do their last thoughts. So Teddy, I will start with you. Last thoughts.
Yeah, I learned a lot from Travis. Thank you for that. I didn't know have a lot of the historical background, but yeah, I guess my overall takeaway is that, when you have a small group of zealots, whether they're religious or other or philosophical or otherwise, and they try to force their belief system on the general populations, saying this is what's best for you. It goes back to the old expression: the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and we all know what that means. So I think that's my takeaway from this whole thing.
Wait, I thought hell was empty because
you're not in it
there was
yet?
going to be no more prohibition. Yeah, because of prohibition. Okay, that's awesome, Teddy. You know what, Teddy? You're so much more lucid when you drink coffee.
How do you know there's not something in this coffee?
Because I made it. I literally made that coffee. All right, Steve.
Is this the temperance? Is it the temperance movement with the coffee and the non-alcoholic beer?
You guys want to hear something funny? So I'm drinking.
No.
I'm drinking. All the World Is Here. This is a cream ale. And I don't know if you can see this. The
Pistachio?
It's Temperance. The
Really?
the name of the
Interesting.
brewery is Temperance Brewery.
That's
Can you
my
believe that?
point. That's
Coincidence.
exactly what I was saying.
Coincidence.
Is that they love naming alcoholic beverages off of dry concepts and figures.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
There
Makes
are
sense.
Carrie Nation bars, Billy Sunday bars, Wayne Wheeler bars,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, last word. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. All right, Steve, we'll save you. Don't worry, you'll get yours. Steve, last thoughts.
Last thoughts, and this hits me as a personal level. My grandparents started a tavern. My dad's 85 now, so it was probably like 5 to 10 years after this. Matt, you've been there actually.
Yes, I have.
It's actually enlightening what you told me today. He was from Kansas. He moved to I didn't know it was dry. He moved to Chicago, started this tavern. Right after this, in Chicago, there's a tavern or saloon right after this, 5 years after this, on every block. And you talk about the public opinion. They were open till 2 a.m, and then they were open at 5 a.m. And I'm like, I was asking my dad, like, that doesn't make any sense. Everybody would work all night long, that third shift, and all the guys wouldn't go home and would actually drink at their bar from like 5 to 9 o'clock and tell their wives that they were, working. So I learned a lot from what you said today. The whole movement about it, and it was a different time. They drank a lot more than we did. But it was great having you on the show, Travis. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, and Travis, last thoughts.
Oh, I mean, obviously, I hope if I've impressed anything, it's that prohibition is a lot more complicated. Whether you're more on the wet side or the dry side, it is a lot more complicated of an issue than just I like alcohol, so I think prohibition shouldn't have happened, or I hate alcohol, so I'm glad it did. It is something worth learning about, and there are so many facets from the cultural and social to political and historical, and it got into our music and our culture and our movies and dance, and it influenced gender rights and politics and religion and all these different things, and that's all it created NASCAR, or helped create NASCAR. And there's all these different things that we try to cover in the museum and give a general sense to how it happened. And then at the end, you get to exercise your 21st Amendment rights if you don't come on a Sunday, and you can have yourself a cocktail, learn about cocktail history through that. Come take a cocktail class, learn how to make them, become your own home bartender. We're a private event space. We've done weddings. We've done Jewish celebrations. We've done corporate events. We have a good time here. We take a history that is worth being serious about. We have a lot of fun with it. And then we also make sure that you have a lot of fun learning about it.
That is awesome. Okay.
I go there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me ask you this before I give my last thoughts. You guys have any like special events coming up, or anything that like is special coming up? I mean, it's February right now. It's what, February 20th?
20th, yeah.
So you got anything like in the next month coming up that people are like, hey man, I got nowhere to go. I'm gonna drive to Georgia. I'm gonna drive to Savannah, or I'm gonna fly down to Savannah, or I'm gonna spend some time there. Anything big?
No specific events, really. I mean, we the thing I haven't mentioned, which is we're open as a regular bar Wednesday through Saturday night, so you can come in through our back door and come have a different cocktail from a different menu. Just chill out, hang out. Hang out in the speakeasy. Take a cocktail class. That's really the big ones. We just passed all the anniversaries, which is when Prohibition began. Those were all in January, and then we usually try to have some form of celebration for both New Year's and Repeal Day. December 5th is the day Prohibition was repealed. So we usually kick off for that. And then we just had Super Museum Sunday, which if you're ever in town, it's wild. And I don't think it's, if you want to see a lot of different places and really take your time with them, it can be kind of not a great idea. But if you want just like a celebration of museums, we do it in Georgia every February, where all the museums that participate are free. So basically Savannah is filled with free museums on the day. And we participate in that.
Wow, that is really cool,
That's
man. Cool. So, but generally, you want to come visit your museum not on a Sunday, right? To get the whole feeling for it.
Unless you don't drink, in which case you can have a mocktail on Sunday and have a good time. But yeah, if you're interested in the cocktails, interested in the cocktail classes, you really want to be here on a Monday through Saturday. I also say, just from a trip planning perspective, we get plenty of people through the summer. It's hotter than you can imagine here if you haven't spent considerable time in the South.
I can imagine.
I had to adjust to it being from New Jersey. Yeah. So like right now, spring, early fall, best time of the year to come.
Do you have a website, Travis?
AmericanProhibitionMuseum.com.
Okay,
and then we have Facebook and Instagram. Right. We also have a web show, which I co-host. We actually have a whole episode about Kennedy, Ted mentioned. Okay. We have a whole episode addressing that thing. We have like 11 different episodes up, all covering different kind of niche topics of prohibition. Great. And we'd love some followers of that too.
That's great. Yeah, we will. Awesome. We will definitely do that. I mean, we'll follow everything. All right. So my last thoughts. So, Travis, when I started talking to you, I just had a feeling that this was going to be really cool, because it's funny. I'm like Steve. I don't pay a lot of attention to I don't pay a lot of attention to history. Right? I know like the gross things, like the things that people say all the time, like Kennedy was a bootlegger and all these things that you kind of feel like, oh, these are things, but they end up not being things.
He just debunked that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm like I feel like I don't pay enough attention to what really happened and all the little side stories.
Like the historical context
of
why.
I'll give you an excuse. It's really easy to miss. Like growing up in history class, even if you pay a lot of attention, think about it in terms of like you're an American history teacher and you need to get from Revolutionary War all the way up to the Gulf War. Prohibition is flanked on either side by World War I and the Great Depression and World War II. There just isn't enough time to talk to a bunch of teenagers who can't drink anyway about blood and gangsters and politics. Well, legally.
They never talked about it, right? You're right.
It's just so easy to skip by. I think it needs more. Luckily, we get all kinds of school groups in here too to learn about it. We just had a big old school group last week, so we're trying to do our part to make sure that it gets told. Ken Burns, if you can't make it to the museum already fast enough, Ken Burns has a great documentary series about it. That really is pretty. What's the word? All inclusive of a lot of the really good history. You get to hear the actual words from people. You hear readings of some of the letters and some of the speeches. It's a really great program. I train using it.
Dude, that sounds awesome. Okay, so listen, everybody, I hope everybody got the same feeling that we did, that we learned a ton of stuff.
I learned stuff that I had no idea.
All right.
No idea.
So I'm gonna go ahead and throw a little bit out here. And my last words are going to be, if you guys tune in next week, you are going to hear a couple of people from, I know you're going to love this, from the Satanic Temple, right? And we are going to talk to a couple of people who are from the Satanic Temple. We're going to have some fun with that, because I'll bet you, kind of like this, that you don't know what they're going to say, and you're going to learn a lot. We got our golf show coming up. We got a whole bunch of cool things coming up. Travis, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Travis.
Steve, thanks for sitting in at the last minute while Mark is being, I don't know if he's hunting or being molested by Bigfoot. But one of those two things I definitely think are happening. All right, so everybody enjoy. Have a great week, and for the next couple Mondays, we're going to be doing our shows on Mondays, so you're going to get new shows Monday night. So sit back, enjoy, and have a great week. Thanks, man.